Well, with that said, yeah, I'll start us off. Paige, but we're in a class at the College of Idaho. It's a business management, or technically it's a principles of management class. My name is Charles Wilson. I'll let everybody else introduce themselves.
I'm Paige Gabriella.
I'm Candace Gary. Kelsey Studite.
I'm Devin Tuck.
So we're all business majors, but our task was to go ahead and present to a local organization. When we got this, we were really excited because a lot of the other groups, they don't have, I think, as large of an organization that you are running here. And especially, I think you guys see how important the idea of motivation is. I mean, that's one of the main things that the Juvenile Detention Center is focused on. So we really thank you. What we wanted to go through is what we found out. Motivation is not just a simple like, hey, if I give you this, more money or something like that, it's going to motivate people. We found out it's actually the force that causes people to change, and forces are different for everyone. So I actually have a brother-in-law, and I was trying to think of a good story that illustrates this, and he smokes, but he got on nicotine patches, and he would take them off and leave them around our house, and it was disgusting because every once in a while I would step on a nicotine patch, and it would stick on the bottom of my foot, which is, exactly. So I was talking about this to a coworker of mine. She says, oh yeah, my husband, he takes off his nicotine patch and he sticks it like on my jewelry case at home. And thinking about what I learned about motivation in this class, I'm like, what is motivating this guy? And he said, and supposedly he does that because the trash can's on the other side. So she's trying to motivate him in all sorts of different ways. Nagging, right? She pleads with him. She's joked about it. And he still does it. And so I think that's what we're learning is what motivates people, right? Because it's going to be different for everyone. We're finding out that a lot of companies, they try to motivate everybody the same way.
Listen, Mom, I wanted to talk to you about Deborah's birthday.
Oh, my God, talk about birthdays. Your birthday gift to me finally came this morning. And did you know you sent me a box of pears?
Yeah.
From a place called Fruit of the Month?
That's right. How are they?
Oh, they're very nice pears. But there's so many of them. There are over a dozen pears. What am I supposed to do with all those pears?
I think you're supposed to eat them, Mom.
Myself?
You and Dad and Robert.
How many pears can Robert eat? I appreciate the thought, Reginald, but please, don't ever send us any more food again, okay? Thanks.
Well, another box is coming next month.
What? More pears?
No, it's a different fruit every month.
Every month?
Yes, that's why they call it Fruit of the Month Club.
It's a club? Oh, my God, what am I going to do with all this fruit?
Well, most people like it, Bob. You share it with all your friends.
Which friends?
I don't know. Lee and Stan.
They can stand by their own fruit. I get started to doing fruit in the house.
So for a lot of people, they're motivated by, oh, I'm giving you a gift. I think that's a great idea. But that's stressing her out, She doesn't like it. She doesn't like fruit. That's not a motivator for her. She actually wants less fruit. Don't give us any more food. So that's what we want to talk about. How can we help ourselves and you or anyone? Really, how do we motivate in a different way? We're going to talk a little bit about creating a plan, how to basically help the juveniles that are here. Paige has given us some really good info. They go to different levels of basically things that they're allowed to do, getting pens in the room, books in the room, right? Yeah. And so it sounds like that's a motivation plan you already have in place. Yeah. Did you guys invent that here, or was that?
Well, there are different level systems, different models that are in use across the nation. We actually came up with our own plan here. We didn't like some of the point systems that are very staff intensive.
So they have to keep tabulating them. And,
yeah.
Oh.
And assigning points in one place, another place in Idaho, the staff give the kids points. Every time they do something good, give the kid points. Well, if a kid doesn't get seen doing something good, does he get the points? Are the points distributed fairly and consistently? So to take some of those subjective things out of it, our level system is a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Some say maybe not quite as good. I think it's better. It's not as staff intensive. The kids are empowered to put in their request. They know when they can put in their next request, and it's their responsibility to do it. Staff doesn't help them. It gives them the power to control their progression of the level system.
It's almost like they can give themselves rewards at certain points by applying for that
They
level.
apply for it, and they know when they're eligible as far as time, and most of them also know when they're eligible as far as if they've had any write-ups, which bumps the eligibility date back a little bit. So keep that in mind. I think the kids try to be good, not get the write-ups, get to their eligibility date as soon as possible, put in their request, and move up on the level system.
And then for you guys and everyone else, it creates a calmer facility and people behave better. I mean, that's the eventual goal, yeah. Well, that sounds like a lot of the stuff we're learning. We went into different details, so you might find stuff that's useful, or it might be the same that you're already using. But yeah, reinforcing good behavior. We'll talk about changing work that's more for employees, but it might even be, because I know obviously there's lots of activities that they do, so it might even be changing activities. And then valued rewards, and then timely and fair rewards. So we'll go from there. Basically, that's a lot what we're talking about. Low-performing juveniles, people, guys and gals that are basically struggling here that maybe don't want to proceed. I mean, why? Why would they stop? So some people are motivated in a big different way. Nagging, shaming, or shaming again, it tends to not work for a lot of people. For some people, every once in a while, maybe embarrassing them in front of other people works, but it only works for a short time. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be going well. One of the things we thought was realizing if some of the juveniles saw other juveniles moving ahead, then it's almost kind of like a picture like, hey, I can do that too. There's nothing stopping me. So
Right.
And then obviously, how much effort do you guys want to put in to have results? I mean, you could have a staff person for every juvenile, but that's just absurdly expensive, right? I mean, people like Paige don't grow on trees. Yeah.
Finding that out.
So going from there, we'll talk about that motivation program.
And we may refer to managers and employees at certain times because it's based off of what we presented in the class and from what our course. So if we say managers and employees, we refer to people and juveniles at the same time too. So I'm going to tell you about the elements of an effective motivational program. It's grounded on the belief that employees or say people can be high performers if they're and person motivated at the same time. There's 6 steps to this program, and I'm just going to briefly explain each and one of those 6 steps. And generally, like when people come into a workplace, they start off motivated and really eager to learn new things. But the lack of motivation is often a learned response. That can be swayed by attitudes of other employees being negative, possibly, or by being given unrealistic tasks that they feel they can't complete to their best of their ability based off of what they know. The second step is that role of the role of kind of the higher authority, being there to support the people beneath them to help out with the problem-solving problems, and being there to support them because management holds that higher power in the decision-making process, and we as people need to know that they're there to help us as well. A reward system that should encourage high personal performance, much like the levels and the O&Os to level 4s and stuff like that. Now that we as the guards and stuff like that have taken the initiative to reward these kids with the higher power and giving them more privileges and stuff, they should realize that consistency of keeping that good behavior and hard work going should encourage that reward. Motivation works best when you yourself are motivated. That's a pretty basic step because the more motivated you are, the better you're going to be working towards something. So a kid that's not very much motivated probably might move slowly through the level system, but the kid that really wants those privileges and everything will work harder. And treatment, being treated fairly, this is a pretty obvious step. No one likes to be treated unfairly or seen that they're being treated differently than everybody else. And giving timely and honest feedback back to people helps them improve on tasks that they're doing, or what they can improve on, or what they are doing well in the system.
When we set goals, it's important to celebrate success. So with any goal you set personally, or with your team, or in your business, always have a reward. This is going to help maintain motivation. Take the reward three-dimensional whenever possible, or at least one-dimensional. Have a picture or a display of the reward, which is going to act as a visual reminder of what will be received on successful completion of the goal. You may even like to have what we call affirmations, or phrases that you can read every day to further remind you of your goal. Both these techniques are used by high achievers. You can be a high achiever too, just by following these basic steps. Write your specific goal down. Give it a deadline, otherwise it's just a dream. Have some statements you can read to remind you of your goal in places you're always going to see, and celebrate accomplishment. This will bring you success by whatever definition you want to give success.
Okay, so that video just was a short little sum up of what we're going to be talking about. So for goal characteristics, they need to be consistent. So an example of this would be Charles, who works in an Apple store. If he sets a goal that he wants to get more work done in the back, but also wants to be with more customers, it doesn't really make sense because, if one gets more than the other, then they're not working together. It needs to be appropriately challenging. So my example of this is Devin. He's a college basketball player. And so last year he shot 85% at the free throw line. And if his an appropriately challenging goal this year would be 90%.
Or 95.
Whatever. Just saying, it's just still really challenging because it's not like too far where he can't get it, but it's also not too easy. So if he was like, I want to get 85% again, it's like, well, you're not improving anything. So that's where it's kind of different. And then feedback, that's mostly for like long time goals. So our goal as a team would be to do this presentation right now, and that was over like 2 months. So we kept having meetings and meetings and meetings to talk to the professor to get feedback on like what we were doing and how it was doing right. And then I have this little picture of Be a Gold Digger. It kind of goes off the song Gold Digger by Kanye West, so we thought that was kind of funny.
Do juveniles get frustrated if they get penalized like a long time after they do an activity? Or like something wrong?
Yeah, they would. That's why we have deadlines in place that if it's a major rule infraction, the due process hearings have to start first by getting a notification of intent to discipline. It has to be served within 24 hours. The hearing has to be done quickly after that.
So that's exactly what you're talking about. I'll let you stand over on the camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And if we miss a deadline, then I'll overturn the punishment and I'll overturn the whole write-up.
Wow.
It's that important to be timely.
Timely and consistent, too.
And we'll talk more about timing, I think, on this next slide, actually. Okay, so SMART goals, they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So exactly what you're talking about. Specific, so an example that we use like when we're presenting to our class, because it's college-age students, is like selling your books. So my goal is I want to sell my books. So to be specific, I say I want to sell my books on Have.com, because that's an online book-selling site. Measurable, my goal for being measurable would say I want to sell 3 books by the end of the semester. Attainable, it's attainable because I can actually do things to make it happen. So I can tell all of them, hey, check out the books that I have. If you need them, I can tell my friends. I can ask the people who have already bought from me to like rate me so I get higher up. So it has to be something you can actually do. It can't just be, I want to be better at basketball than Devin, and then like I'm shorter, so I can't like grow taller. He's already years ahead of me, so it's probably not going to happen. It has to be relevant. So I'm a college student, so obviously I don't have tons of money. So the more money I can get back from my books, the more I can have to buy the newer books I want to make me buy anyway. And then timely, I set a time, end of the semester. Super simple. Okay, so removing obstacles. First of all, you need to create a supportive environment, so you don't want any hostility or make people feel that they can't come and talk to you. You need to be an effective manager. So basically means you need to know where your employee's at, and then also like how to deal with them in the correct way. You need to know when to get involved. So obviously, like you won't go to someone who's been here a really long time, knows how to do everything, and tell them what to do. But if you get someone who's new and hasn't even been trained, you're going to have to talk to them more and help them out. Also, coming with that, when you have people who are having troubles and they're not really willing to come to you, you need to be able to see that they're having trouble, because some people aren't going to be as comfortable. So you need to be able to recognize that kind of stuff. And then you always want to ask, how's work going? How can I help you succeed? What do you enjoy most, least? And then these are two just things I found that were kind of interesting. One says, people who wrote down their goals were 42% more likely to achieve them than the ones who didn't. Telling a friend increases this rate to 78%. And then work for cause, not for applause. Live life to express, not to impress. Don't strive to make your presence noticed, just make your absence felt.
Do the juveniles ever come up with their own goals or what they want to do?
In order to progress from certain levels, they have to have a plan.
So they have to have. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Simple one, but they have to have something. And I'm pretty sure.
Okay, cool, great, yeah.
Performance enhancing behavior pretty much just talks about every day when you're interacting with someone you're trying to motivate, your reactions to their behavior can change or alter their behavior. So if someone's has a negative behavior that, as a manager or any person you want to change the behavior, the best thing to do is discipline it. And most often, especially managers, they choose to ignore the negative behavior. Like if someone's showing up late, they ignore it, and that's often taken for an excuse to be late. It's okay to be late because if they're not being punished, and they think the manager is all right with it. And same thing with the positive. It's good to tell people when they're doing a good job, because then they may even improve and make their acceptable behavior exceptional. Inconsistency is really important with this. I had a few good examples. I compared new employees to infants. When a parent has an infant, they're always having to tell them, no, don't do this, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And as a child grows older, the parent doesn't have to tell them not to touch a hot stove, unless you're my mother and she still tells me not to touch a hot stove, and I'll forgive her because she's my mother, but I might be offended in a different situation. And then an example of getting praise. I was babysitting my 5-year-old cousin who just started school this fall, and we were throwing a football back and forth, winter football, and he started counting every time one of us would throw 1, 2, 3, and I let him get up to 20. I was like, oh my gosh, Colin, you're so smart. He's just kind of like, yeah. I am. And so then he just wants to show off some more. So he started counting backwards, 20, 19. So then at this point, I am just totally amazed with his skills. And then we got some milk and cookies because he deserved it. But if I started counting to 20 and counted backwards from 20, no one's going to give me cookies because it's expected that I should know how to do that. So that's a good example of when consistency, it's different for people at different levels. If you want to step closer.
Yep. Okay, so one of the best ways to motivate people is by redesigning work so it's more motivating to them. And the model that I'm going to present to you is comprised of these 5 core job dimensions, and they're skill variety, task identity, task significance, and autonomy and feedback. So skill variety. So the more skills that you use in the workplace, obviously the more meaningful the work is going to be to you. If you're skilled in one thing, but you're not being able to use that, you're not going to be motivated to do the work. Task identity. The more you are transparent with what you want people to do, the more they're going to be able to complete that job from work to end, or from beginning to end, and it's going to be more meaningful to them. Task significance. The more significant a task is to somebody, obviously, the more responsibility you're going to feel to complete that work. Autonomy, which is freedom in the workplace. If you have more freedom in the workplace, you're going to feel more responsible for the work that you do, and that's going to lead to more motivating work. And then feedback, like you were talking about, feedback needs to be timely and consistent, and just very open feedback channels. And then some strategies to do this.
It's the next one.
Yeah. Combining tasks is going to increase skill significance, or task significance and skill variety. Form identifiable work units. So form work units and tell them exactly what they're going to do each day. This is going to allow people to complete work in a timely manner. Establish client relationships. This is going to increase autonomy, task identity, and feedback. increase authority. So the more authority you give people, the more responsibility they're going to have, which will lead to more motivating work. And then open feedback channels, which is going to increase autonomy and feedback.
Tim, you said you got a new coach recently at C of I, the basketball coach, and it seems like this coach, you have a lot more feedback channels with them. Is that right?
So our coach the past 3 years he was like really negative and just always on you. Every time you did something wrong, I felt that we always had the right players so we could succeed. But we got a new coach this year, and he's a totally different system. It's all positive. He's never negative with us. He's open feedback. He lets you know when you do something wrong, but it's more constructive criticism rather than discipline, which has really, like, if we had the same coach last year, I probably wouldn't have played basketball this year, so I'm more motivated to play for him because he's so positive and his feedback is better.
And you had a result, right?
Yeah, we've been winning games, which is unusual for us.
When did the team change that much between last year and this year?
No, not at all, really. It's just the way the system leadership. Yeah,
that's a perfect example. Thanks, man.
All right, so valuable rewards, like we saw in the video with Ray and Marie. She did not value the fruit. She did not want the fruit. She didn't want any more fruit to come. And often, when managers give benefits, they usually cash bonus is a really common one, or increased benefits. But often, praise or even recognition is what some people want. So, to understand what reward will benefit a person the most or motivate them the most, a manager or any. You as a manager of the kids, you need to know what they find rewarding, and as you guys have in your levels, you know that they want more books or the books or the pens, or you understand what the kids want. So as managers, it's also important to know that not every single employee is going to value the same thing. Know the employees, just a little emphasis on that point. It's important to know them.
And mine just kind of goes off of Kelsey's. It's just a reward is not always a reinforcer, especially when they're overdue, the timing is improper, when the reward is given, the value has no purpose or personal value to the person it's given to, and there's no explanation as to why the reward is given to them. And I have an example of a bad example and a good example. And this is the bad example.
Great job this
No, they did that the other day.
Okay, so this is a bad example of giving a reward to an employee, mainly because when the manager gave the reward to the gentleman, she said, great job this month. Great job doing what? What did he do good at? Was it coming to work every day? Was it sharpening his pencils properly? There was no explanation as to why he did a good job for what he did. And obviously there was no value to the employee because he just shreds his employee of the month thing into the shredder. So had no personal value, probably because, like, seeing the manager, she just makes a copy of, didn't even take time to think, oh, maybe who did do a good job this month and earn the employee of the month. She just thought of it, oh, it's that time of the month where I have to pick an employee, so I have to. For a good example of a timely reward, I'm going to use a personal example of my own. When I worked, before I came here, I worked at Fordham's Produce in Fruitland, Idaho, and at the big produce stand, if you know about it. And when I initially came on, the manager told me that I'd be making minimum wage, which was $7.25 an hour, as well as receive a bonus at the end of the year and a reward if I came back the next year. And I was like, okay, great. So by the end of the year, I received a $200 bonus for my hard work and still was making $7.25 an hour.
And the next year I started, my pay increase was $1 at $8.25, and I received a $250 bonus at the end of the year. So every year I came back, it had increased by $1 as well as increased by $50 in my bonus. So by the time I graduated and moved on to higher things, as well as Purdum's went out of business, but I was making $11.25 an hour and received a $400 bonus working at a produce stand.
Wow.
So what kept me coming back every year was obviously the pay increase and the bonuses at the end of the year, because they kept me coming back being a loyal worker and because of the value of the reward that I was getting as for the money increase. So. And being fair and equitable, and this is a very important part in the motivational program, because managers tend to overlook the perceptions and opinions of their employees, which needs to be closely monitored because it can create a lot of tension and resentment in the workplace, as well as with juveniles and stuff. If you don't hear what they say, they kind of shut down, or they start just terrorizing you. I know how it is, a little bit. And equity refers to the workers' perceptions of fairness of rewards. So when there's a feeling of inequality in the workplace, everybody just kind of starts to shut down, and they're not a cohesive team, and they start beginning to compare what they're getting out of work to what they're putting into work, which is a manager's worst nightmare. You don't want that. You want a team that works hard all the time, no matter what the situation is.
So basically, I mean, that's generally what we talked about. We went in and we talked about each of those different key aspects when we first started. Because I think that right now, you guys have implemented a lot of these things already. You already have a motivation plan. You already work to be fair. You are increasingly timely. One of the things we found out, though, was it's nice to know what everybody is specifically motivated by. I mean, you could probably